want none! You don't want none!
What's going on, ACC football family? It is your favorite North Carolinian, Russ, the Tar Heel. And in this huddle, baby, we're going to revisit the week one slate of ACC football games and see how your boy fared on his picks. But before we jump into that, man, if you're new to the channel, obviously I first and foremost cover University of North Carolina football and basketball. But if you're just an ACC football, college football fan in general, man, do me a favor, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share this video with your ACC football buddies, man. So without further ado, because we've got a ton of stuff to get into, man, let's dive into this thing, and we're going to start with the Thursday night games, man. And we got Little Bro, that's NC State for all you non-North Carolinians, who took on Western Carolina at Carter Finley Stadium. And let's just say the final score did not necessarily tell the tale. That game was knotted up at 21 going into the fourth, and I don't think Wolfie expected that, and quite honestly, bro, neither did I. Now, they ended up walking away with this game, 38-21. Grayson McCall overcame an interception by throwing for 318 yards and 3 touchdowns. KC Concepcion was featured often. Dude had 9 receptions for 123 yards and 3 touchdowns. And Jordan Waters made his NC State debut. The dude had 20 rushes, so they featured him, 123 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, it's crazy because 38-21, State was a 32.5-point favorite. And guess what? Tennessee is looming. We'll see, but I have a feeling that Wolfie and Wolfie Stinking Nation, I have a feeling they all came down to earth a little bit, just a little bit in this one. I had State beating up on Western Carolina, though. They ended up winning the football game. That puts me at 1-0 for the week. Next up, North Carolina A&T out there in Winston-Salem to take on the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. Wake Forest only took a 17-10 lead into the half against the team that won one football game in 2023. And then they outscored the Aggies 28-3 in the second half. Hank Backmeyer steps in. Dude goes for 263 yards, 18 for 28, and he had 3 touchdowns. Damon Claiborne rushed for 135 yards and a touch. And then Morin had 6 receptions for 100 yards. Easy money for the Deeks. I obviously picked them to beat A&T. That puts me at 2-0 for the week straight up. And then we got your boys. The boys in Carolina Blue, man. Oh, my goodness. I really don't even know where to start with this game, man. I'm surprised I woke up the next morning after that one. Max Johnson and Connor Harrell did not play well at all. 105 yards passing. And fortunately, the University of North Carolina's got O'Marion Hampton in the backfield, who's an All-American, and he put that team on his back. Not to mention the Golden Toe, Noah Burnett, going 4 for 4 on field goals, and the Gophers missing 2 of their own, including the go-ahead from 47. UNC is going to have to clean up a ton on offense, man. Fortunately, Charlotte and North Carolina Central are their next 2 games. And that gives Connor Harrell a ton of time as the for sure QB1 after Max's unfortunate season-ending injury to get things right. On the flip side, the defense allowed less than 250 yards. They forced a turnover that resulted in 3 points for the offense, basically, and they held a Minnesota team with a really good offensive line to 78 yards rushing. Now, Jeff may be the piece that we've been missing. Unfortunately, the question would be, now that Carolina might finally have a respectable defense, do they still have an offense? Only time will tell. I still picked the Heels 24-20 over the Gophers. They ended up eking out a 19-17 win. That gets me at 3-0 straight up in my Thursday night games. Next, Elon at Duke. The Manny Diaz show begins with a 26-3 victory over the Elon, Phoenix, and Durham. It's the first game of the season, but interesting that Puke only led 10-0 at the half, man. Malik Murphy makes his Blue Devils debut by going 26 for 40 for 291 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Something to note should be the fact that Puke was only able to muster, though, 350 yards of total offense against Elon. And the Devils' leading rusher was Jaquez Moore, who had 10 carries for 24 yards and a touchdown. That's 2.4 yards per carry against lower-level competition. The Devils were able to hold Elon to 140 yards of total offense, though. That's a plus for a Manny-led team. He's obviously a defensive guy. I had the Devils getting it done. There's no way Elon came into Durham and beat them. That puts me at 4-0 on the week. Then we had Texas Christian at Stanford, the late game on Friday night. I predicted that this one would be a little bit tighter of a football game despite the woes of the Cardinal last season. Stanford actually took a 17-10 lead over TCU into the half, but they were not able to hold on. TCU's Josh Hoover threw for 353 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Jack Beck balled out with 12 receptions for 146 yards himself. Stanford's Ashton Daniels struggled by going 17 for 35. That's less than 50% completion percentage for only 163 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. They were also only able to generate 286 yards of offense compared to TCU's 457. Very possible that it's going to be another very long season if you're a Stanford Cardinal fan. I picked this one 31-28 Texas Christian. Little bit larger margin, but straight up I'm 5-0 through the Friday games as TCU handled the stinking Cardinal. Now, Clemson versus Virginia, our first Saturday game. And it was a thrashing, dude, by the Bulldogs. Now, Georgia only led 6-0 at the half, but that was followed by a 28-3 onslaught in the second half of that football game. I was pretty confident that Georgia was going to win that game, but I was honestly a little surprised at the final score. The Tigers were competitive, at least defensively for half, but the Dogs were too much for them after the break. I'm not going to put too much stock into this game necessarily as far as the ACC is concerned, because I do believe that Georgia is the best team in the country. They've been the best team in the country for the past 4 or 5 years. Yes, that includes last year. They'll be fine when they stop playing NFL teams a la the Georgia Bulldogs. Cade will throw for more than 142 yards. Phil Maffa's not going to consistently be held to 59 yards. I picked this game correctly, though. 6-0 on the week. Next up, my first stumbling block. And this one is a little freaking weird, man, because I picked the Hokies to win in Nashville, but at the same time, I've been warning people not to buy the media hype on this Hokie football team. I wonder how much more Hokie Nation is going to be able to take when it comes to Brent Pry underperforming, if you will, man. Or could it just be that my suspicions were valid? Tech is not a very good football team. Kyron Drones did throw for 322 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception, but the defense could not get off the field toward the latter stages of the game. And then I had to sit there and listen to the ESPN commentators talk about how the worst team in the SEC beat up on an ACC contender. And you know what? That's thanks to all the people that tried to hype Virginia Tech up. It's dead, man. Please, can we stop the Virginia Tech thing now? Good night, man. Virginia Tech lets me down, and it moves my score prediction record now with a blemish to 6-1 on the week. Next up, we got Austin Peay at Louisville. Now, I don't care who you're playing. 62-0 with 571 yards of total offense compared to giving up only 106 equals domination. What a start for the stinking Cards, bro. Tyler Shao goes 18 for 24, 232 yards, and 4 touchdowns to no interceptions. Isaac Brown rushes for 123 yards on 5 carries. On 5 carries for a touchdown. You'll take that all day as your defense held the Govs to a goose egg. I pick Louisville. My record goes to 7-1 on the week. Next up, we got the Kent State Golden Flashes at the Pitt Panthers. Supposed to be a quarterback battle here between Eli Holstein and Nate Yarnell. Well, Eli Holstein went 30 for 40, 333 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception against the Golden Flashes. Nate Yarnell went 4 for 8, 33 yards, and a touchdown. I'd say Pitt has the guy that they're looking for as the Panthers take care of business, 55-24. Damon Reed also had a big game rushing, 145 yards and 14 carries with a touchdown. The jury is still out on this Pitt football team, though, but they did handle business like I said that they would. Brings my record to 8-1 on the week. Next up, we got Ohio at Syracuse. Syracuse overcomes a very sluggish start behind a 6-0 at the end of the first quarter football game to beat the Bobcats 38-22. And that's following the much-anticipated debut of Ohio State transfer Kyle McCord. He threw for 354 yards, 4 touchdowns, and a pick. And LaQuint Allen almost rushed for a hundred by grabbing 98 yards behind 10 carries. A concern would be that the Q's defense allowed Anthony Tyus III to rush for 203 yards and 2 touchdowns. Ohio as a team rushed for 6.5 yards per carry. They're going to have to clean that up for sure. I did pick the Q's, though, and that moves my record on the week 9-1. Next up, UC Davis at Cal. Cal was able to eventually shake off the rust and knock off UC Davis 31-13, but it wasn't always stinking pretty. 7 of those points were actually on an 80-yard kickoff return for a touchdown as well. And Cal was only able to stink and muster 281 yards of total offense against UC Davis. UC Davis actually outgained Cal as they had 304 yards of total offense. And then you look at Jaden Ott. He had 2 rushing touchdowns, but he was also held to 49 yards on 14 carries. That's only 3.5 yards per carry. That is not the greatest stat line for the preseason All-ACC selection against UC Davis. UC Davis is not necessarily a powerhouse, but Cal gets it done, and that moves my record to 10-1 on the week. Following that, Richmond at Virginia. Anthony Calandria, right? He proves why he got the starting job over Tony Muskett. Has a really good game, 17 for 23, 297 yards and 2 touchdowns compared to Muskett's 0 for 3 outing late in the game. Not to mention, Muskett threw a pick. Kobe Pace had 93 yards and a touchdown on 11 carries. And the UVA offense was almost able to generate 500 yards of total offense, 497 to be exact. It's impressive, man. We'll see how that works out as the competition stiffens. But I had UVA winning this one. That moves me to 11-1 on the week. Next up, Georgia State at Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech gets over ever so slight of a lull like I anticipated, and they ended up routing the Georgia State Panthers 35-12. Haynes King threw for 275 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Malik Rutherford had a big day, 131 yards receiving and a touchdown on 7 receptions. And the Georgia Tech offense was able to generate 499 yards of total offense as they moved to 2-0, which is a very impressive start for this team in 2024. Now, I picked the Jackets to handle business in this one. I did say that there would be a little bit of a lull. Seems like that was fairly accurate, but that moves me to 12-1 straight up for the week. Next up, Houston Christian at SMU. And SMU dominated this game like what was expected, as most colleges are going to beat up on most high school teams. They had almost 600 yards of total offense, and they held Houston Christian to 157 yards. Not much to say about this football game. SMU handled business. They moved to 2-0, and I'm 13-1 on the week. And the last game that I want to talk about on this Saturday slate of football games is the Miami Hurricanes dismantling of the Florida Gators in the Swamp 41-17. ACC, ACC, ACC. And I completely got this one wrong, though. I thought that Cam Ward and Damian Martinez would struggle in that environment. They didn't. The Florida crowd had little to no effect on the Canes as Cam Ward showed out. The dude threw for 385 with 3 touchdowns, and Xavier Restrepo caught 7 passes for 112 yards and a touchdown. The Miami offense generated 529 yards of total offense to Florida's 261. In the swamp, bro. The Miami offensive line was protecting Cam like a newborn baby in a cradle, bro. You could tell how comfortable he was in the pocket. He was just sitting back there, just delivering the football, just as comfortable as could be, man. And on the other side of the football, the Canes had 3 sacks and 8 TFLs. Is the U back? That's the question, man. Is the U back? I don't know. But that is an impressive start, bro. And they looked every bit the part on Saturday, man. Miami looked good. And if you're a Miami Hurricane fan, I think you got a lot to be excited about following week 1, dude. That was a dismantling of the Florida Gators out there in Gainesville, man. And Miami looks stinking tough. And that moves my record on the week to 13-2, 15-2 overall this season, which is good for an 88% winning percentage. So we'll cover Boston College and Florida State at a later date. You let me know down in the comment section, ACC football family, what you think about each one of these football games. If one of these is your team, I want to know what you think about the state of your program. What is the good that you saw from your team? What are the things that you're concerned about? Are you legitimate contenders? Etc., etc. And like I said, if you haven't already, man, like, share, and subscribe to the channel. You don't have to be a Tar Heel, but if you're an ACC football guy and you're proud of your stinking conference, man, show your boys some stinking love. And you make sure you come in here and let's hash this out about who's the kings of the Atlantic Coast Conference. So, without further ado, baby, we will catch you on the next one.